Think of the last time you felt irresistibly drawn to someone, that person who scrambled your logic and made your pulse race for reasons you couldn't quite articulate. Now, try to forget their smile, the sound of their voice, or the convenient list of hobbies you both shared. Forget the story you told yourself about why it made sense. The truth is, that feeling of falling wasn't a choice you made. It was a conclusion reached in the most primitive, silent corners of your own mind, long before your conscious self was even consulted. Your brain, in its infinite and often inscrutable wisdom, had already made the decision for you. It didn't need a long list of qualifications. It only used two hidden criteria, two primal questions that have nothing to do with the person you saw and everything to do with the person you are. We are all fed a grand, beautiful lie about romance. Culture, from poetry to cinema, teaches us that passion is a mysterious alchemy, a serendipitous collision of two souls who just click. We learn to search for a counterpart who shares our taste in music, laughs at our jokes, and complements our lifestyle. We mistake these superficial harmonies for the cause of a deeper resonance, but they are merely the symptoms. These are the justifications we invent afterward to give structure to an experience that is fundamentally chaotic and instinctual. The overwhelming pull you feel towards another isn't born from shared interests. It's born from a place of profound, unspoken need. It is a recognition, not a choice, and it bypasses all the logical architecture we so carefully build around our hearts. This is the central secret of attraction, the engine that drives the passions we so often misunderstand. Stripped of all its romantic and cultural layers, the irresistible pull one person feels for another stems from only two fundamental sources. It is not about your accomplishments, your physical appearance, or your inherent goodness. It is a psychological mechanism far more profound and selfish. In the eyes of someone falling for you, you are never just you. You become a living symbol, a vessel for one of two powerful unconscious quests. You are either a mirror reflecting a future they desperately want to inhabit, or you are a key, promising to unlock and finally resolve a wound from their distant past. Understanding this is to understand the very machinery of desire. So let's begin by dismantling the romantic mythology you have been taught to believe. The idea that you fall for someone because they are kind, intelligent, or share your love for obscure cinema is a comforting fiction, a story your conscious mind weaves to make sense of an unconscious storm. These qualities are certainly valuable, but they are not the triggers of that all-consuming, world-altering passion. They are merely the acceptable reasons, the public-facing narrative for a decision that was made in the dark. The real reasons are far more primitive, more self-serving, and have very little to do with the objective reality of the person you desire. They have everything to do with the hidden architecture of your own psyche, the unspoken vacancies and unhealed fractures you carry within you every single day. We often use the word chemistry as a shorthand for this mysterious pull, a catch-all term for a connection that feels immediate and profound. But what is this chemistry, really? It isn't a magical, inexplicable spark. It is the language of the unconscious. It is your deepest self recognizing something in another person that it desperately needs. This recognition is not about shared opinions or compatible zodiac signs. It is a signal that this person, for reasons you cannot yet comprehend, represents a potential for wholeness. They embody a quality you lack, a strength you crave, or, more darkly, a familiar wound you feel compelled to revisit. That feeling of chemistry is simply the sound of your own inner world shouting, yes, long before your rational mind has had a chance to ask why. The most unsettling truth about falling in love is that it is not an act of will. You do not choose it. It chooses you. Think of it like a dream. You don't decide the characters, the setting, or the narrative arc of your dreams. You are simply an actor, plunged into a script written by an unknown playwright within you. Passion functions in the same way. The person who suddenly occupies every corner of your thoughts is a character cast by your subconscious to play a pivotal role in the ongoing drama of your life. This is why the experience feels so overwhelming and out of control. It's because, in a very real sense, you are not in control. You are being guided by hidden currents, drawn toward a person who promises to resolve a deep, internal tension. This brings us to the crucial turning point, the moment we trade the illusion of choice for the power of understanding. Passion is not a choice, it is a recognition. But what, precisely, is it that we are recognizing? It is not the recognition of a perfect partner or a fated soulmate, as the stories tell us. It is the recognition of a psychological tool. The other person, often without their knowledge or consent, becomes a living symbol of something our soul needs to do. Your psyche, in its relentless quest for growth or resolution, scans the world for individuals who can serve a specific function, and when it finds one, it floods your system with the intoxicating neurochemicals of passion to ensure you pay attention. Therefore, the question of why them becomes profoundly personal and in many ways deeply selfish. The specific person you fall for is not the cause of your passion, but rather the catalyst for it. They are the screen upon which you project your most profound needs. Before we explore the two primary forces that govern this process, you must accept this fundamental premise. The other person is a key. We are all walking through life with invisible locks, complex mechanisms forged by our deepest aspirations and our most formative traumas. Passion is that rare, electrifying moment when we meet someone who feels like they were built to turn the tumblers, to open a door within us that has long been sealed shut. The first reason a person becomes the center of another's universe is this: you become a mirror to their ideal self. This is not about vanity or simple admiration. It is a profound act of psychological projection. They see in you not who you are, but who they secretly dream of becoming. You might embody the courage they lack, the artistic freedom they crave, the discipline they can't seem to master, or the social grace they've always admired from afar. Your very existence becomes a living, breathing testament to a potential they feel is dormant within themselves. You are the proof that the life they desire is possible, and by getting closer to you, they feel they can finally access it. This process is fundamentally about aspiration. The other person gazes at you and sees their own future, amplified and perfected. If they feel shackled by a mundane life, they will be irresistibly drawn to your spirit of adventure. If they are plagued by self-doubt, they will idolize your confidence. You are not a partner in this equation. You are a destination. The overwhelming passion they feel is the energy of their own ambition, redirected and focused onto you. They don't want to be with you in a conventional sense. They want to absorb you, to learn the secret of your being so they can replicate it for themselves. Your life becomes their instruction manual for a better existence. This dynamic quickly creates a sense of admiration that borders on worship. It explains the almost blinding intensity of a new passion where the other person seems to hang on your every word and celebrate your every quality. They are not simply in love with you, they are in awe of you. You are placed on a pedestal not as a person with flaws and complexities, but as a flawless symbol of an ideal. This adulation is intoxicating, but it is also deeply impersonal. They are in love with the reflection they see in the mirror you provide, a perfected and idealized image of their own potential. They are loving the promise of their own transformation. Consider the timeless archetype of the savior or the muse. An individual feeling lost, uninspired, or trapped in mediocrity suddenly encounters someone who is brimming with purpose, creativity, or discipline. The passion that erupts is not for the person themselves, but for what they represent, a way out. They fall for the artist not because they understand their art, but because the artist's dedication makes their own lack of passion feel redeemable. They are drawn to the successful entrepreneur not for their business acumen, but because their confidence is a balm for their own insecurities. You become the living cure for their quiet desperation, a symbol of the unlived life they yearn for. Let us be brutally honest for a moment. In this dynamic, the passion directed at you is fundamentally selfish. It is not about seeing you, understanding you, and connecting with your authentic self. It is about using you as a vehicle for their own self-actualization. The intense feeling they label as love is, in reality, a profound love for the person they hope to become in your presence. The validation and admiration you receive are conditional, tied directly to your ability to maintain the illusion they have projected onto you. They love the improved version of themselves that they experience when they are with you, a version that feels more alive, more capable, and more hopeful. Initially, being the object of this projection can feel incredibly validating. To be seen as a paragon of strength, talent, or freedom is a powerful boost to the ego. You feel seen in a way you may never have before, celebrated for the very qualities you might value most in yourself. The admiration of the other person acts as a constant affirmation. However, a subtle but immense pressure begins to mount. You are no longer a person, you are a role. You must consistently perform the part of the ideal, the savior, the muse. There is no room for your own doubts, your own weaknesses, or your own messy humanity. The first crack in this mirrored passion appears the moment you betray the projection. When the person they see as fearless admits to being scared, or the icon of independence confesses a moment of crippling loneliness, the illusion begins to crumble. The admirer's passion can cool with shocking speed, replaced by confusion and disappointment. But their disappointment is not truly with you for being human. It is with the failure of their fantasy. You were supposed to be the flawless blueprint, and by revealing your own imperfections, you have shown them that their path to self-improvement through you is not as simple as they had hoped. The mirror has shattered. This dynamic is seen in its purest, most distilled form in our culture of celebrity worship. Millions of people feel a passionate connection to actors, musicians, or public figures they have never met. They are not in love with the actual person, who is a complex and unknown human being. They are in love with a carefully constructed image, a symbol onto which they can project their own aspirations for beauty, talent, success, or rebellion. The distance is what makes the projection so stable. The celebrity cannot shatter the illusion with the inconvenience of their real personality. This is the mirror dynamic on a grand societal scale. Now turn that lens inward. Think of a time you were utterly captivated by someone you placed on a pedestal, a mentor, a boss, or a romantic interest who seemed to possess a kind of magic. Ask yourself with unflinching honesty, were you in love with that person, or were you in love with the feeling of possibility they ignited within you? Were you drawn to their essence, or to the way their presence made you feel about your own potential? Acknowledging this distinction is not about diminishing the experience, but about understanding its true source. It's the first step to seeing the architecture of your own desires more clearly. To be fair, this aspirational passion is not always a destructive force. Sometimes it can be a powerful catalyst for genuine growth. By being in the orbit of someone who embodies a quality we admire, we can be inspired to cultivate that quality within ourselves. The passion, even if it is based on a projection and ultimately temporary, can serve its purpose. It can be the spark that lights our own fire, pushing us to become the person we once could only admire in another. The mirror, in this sense, shows us what we are capable of, and we eventually learn to become that image ourselves. However, the inherent danger of this dynamic remains immense. For the person being admired, the pressure to live up to an impossible ideal can lead to a feeling of being a fraud, perpetually performing a version of themselves. They can lose touch with their own authenticity. For the admirer, the risk is becoming a perpetual spectator in their own life. They might live vicariously through their idol, drawing inspiration, but never taking the difficult steps to build their own substance. The relationship becomes a beautiful but hollow structure, built on a pedestal that is destined to crumble under the weight of real life. It's also crucial to understand that the mirror doesn't always reflect grand, heroic qualities. The projection can be far more subtle. Someone who struggles with anxiety might fall passionately for a person who exudes a sense of calm and effortless ease. An individual who was taught to suppress their emotions might become obsessed with someone who is emotionally expressive and vulnerable. The mirror reflects whatever the admirer feels is most painfully absent in their own internal landscape. It is the missing piece of their character that they hope to find and integrate through the alchemy of passion. Think of the person being admired as a source of light. The admirer, feeling themselves to be in a state of inner darkness or grey mediocrity, is drawn to this brilliance. They are like a planet drawn into the orbit of a star, but their primary impulse is not to coexist and share the warmth. It is to possess the source of the light itself. They believe that by capturing the star, its light will become their own and illuminate their own shadowy corners. This reveals the deep-seated desire at the core of the mirror dynamic. It is a desire for acquisition, a hunger to consume the admirable quality, not to simply commune with the person who has it. So, this first path to passion is one of brightness, intensity, and upward momentum. It is the story of human aspiration, of our eternal quest to become better, stronger, and more complete versions of ourselves. It is a passion built on the powerful and intoxicating promise of potential. But we must remember that it is a passion for an image, not for a person. It is a love for a future that may never arrive. And when the polished surface of the mirror is inevitably smudged by reality, the passion often dissolves, leaving behind a confusing sense of loss for a dream that was never truly real in the first place. But there is another path, a path that is darker, deeper, and infinitely more powerful. If the first reason for passion is a flight toward the light of a possible future, the second is a magnetic, often treacherous, pull back into the shadows of the past. This is not about who you want to become. It is about what you have failed to resolve. This is where you cease to be a mirror and instead become a key. You are not pursued for your potential, but for your eerie familiarity. You are pursued because you fit the lock of an old, unhealed wound. This second mechanism is driven by the unconscious mind's obsession with unfinished business. It's a psychological phenomenon where we are compulsively drawn to people and situations that replicate the emotional dynamics of our most formative years, particularly those with our primary caregivers. Your conscious mind seeks happiness, peace, and stability, but your unconscious mind has a different, more urgent agenda. It seeks resolution. It will bypass dozens of healthy, suitable partners to find the one person who, in some subtle or overt way, feels exactly like the past it is trying to fix. This is not a quest for love, but for a second chance. Let's make this painfully clear with an example. A woman who grew up with a brilliant but emotionally distant father who only offered praise for her achievements may find herself, as an adult, irresistibly drawn to powerful, aloof, and critical men. Her friends may be baffled, and her conscious mind may even recognize the destructive pattern, but her unconscious is playing a different game. It is drawn to the familiar, emotional withholding, driven by the primal hope that, this time, she can finally do something to win the unconditional love and approval she never received. The new man is a stand-in for the old ghost. This exposes a profound paradox at the heart of human attraction. Why are we so often drawn to what hurts us? The answer is that the unconscious does not prioritize happiness. It prioritizes familiarity. A known pattern of pain feels, in a strange way, safer and more manageable to the psyche than the terrifyingly unknown territory of a secure and loving relationship. It's the logic of better the devil you know. The unconscious believes that if it can just re-enter that familiar battlefield and finally emerge victorious, it will achieve a sense of mastery and peace. It tragically mistakes the wound for the path to healing. The entire endeavor is fueled by a single, powerful and unconscious belief. This time I can fix it. By choosing a partner who psychologically resembles the source of the original wound, the individual gives themselves a chance to rewrite history. They are not really interacting with the new person in the present moment. They are engaging with a ghost from their past. The goal is to turn a childhood story of neglect into a new story of devotion, to transform a narrative of abandonment into one of unshakable security. The passion is not for the person, it is for the tantalizing possibility of retroactive healing. The feeling generated by this dynamic is often described as the most potent of all. It can feel like destiny, a sense of having known this person forever, and in a way you have. The connection feels so deep and instantaneous because your psyche recognizes the emotional signature immediately. It's the feeling of coming home, even if that home was a place of conflict and pain. This profound sense of familiarity is often mistaken for the mythical soulmate connection. In reality, it is the echo of a much older bond, the recognition of a familiar emotional problem that your soul is still desperately trying to solve. This is the hidden engine behind what we call having a type, especially when that type is consistently self-sabotaging. It's not a preference, it is a compulsion. That recurring attraction to the bad boy, the emotionally unavailable woman, or the partner who needs saving, is not bad luck. It is a script you are unconsciously reenacting. Your type is simply a psychological profile, a casting call for an actor to play a specific role from your past. The powerful attraction you feel is a homing beacon in your soul, locking onto the one person who can perfectly restage your oldest and most defining emotional struggle. Consider the classic archetype of the rescuer, a person who is constantly drawn to broken or problematic partners. On the surface, this may look like altruism or a deep sense of empathy, but often it is a reenactment. The rescuer may have grown up in a chaotic environment where they had to become the responsible one, the little adult who had to care for an unstable parent. As an adult, they are not looking for an equal partner. They are looking for another project, another person to fix. The passion lies not in loving the person, but in the familiar, validating act of saving them. Let's contrast the two forces directly. The mirror represents a passion driven by aspiration. It looks at the other and says, "With you I can ascend to a better version of myself." The key, however, represents a passion driven by repetition. It looks at the other and says, "With you I can finally descend into my past and heal what is broken." The mirror is about building a future. The key is about relitigating the past, and while the mirror's passion can be intense, the key's passion is often far more binding, a psychological glue that is incredibly difficult to dissolve. The ultimate tragedy of the key dynamic is that it is doomed to fail. The new person, the stand-in, can never resolve the original wound. They are not the parent who was distant or the caregiver who was critical. They are simply a proxy, an unwitting actor in a deeply personal play they don't have the script for. The relationship becomes a minefield of projections and transference. The admirer will inevitably be disappointed because their partner cannot give them the one thing they truly want, a different past. They are being asked to solve an equation that does not involve them. So, look at the patterns in your own life. The relationships that felt so fated yet ended in the same familiar pain. The type of person you swore you would avoid, only to find yourself inexplicably drawn to them once again. Ask yourself, were you really seeing them for who they were? Or were they a ghost, a perfect stand-in for an old battle your heart was stubbornly determined to fight one more time? Were you choosing a partner, or were you choosing a familiar wound, hoping that this time loving it hard enough would finally make it heal. This attraction is not always about overt drama. It can be triggered by the most subtle of cues, a particular way of sighing that echoes a disappointed mother, a pattern of working late that mimics an absent father, a specific tone of voice that implies criticism, even when none is intended. These are the microscopic sensory triggers that the unconscious mind recognizes. It hears a note from a long-forgotten song and feels an overwhelming urge to dance, even if the dance is one of sorrow. These triggers are the tumblers of the old lock, waiting for the familiar key to turn. It is essential to grasp this chilling point. This pull is not a quest for happiness. If happiness were the goal, the psyche would choose the kind, stable, and loving partner. But the unconscious has a more primal goal: resolution. It believes in its own paradoxical logic that the only way to achieve true inner peace is to master the specific dynamic that caused the original trauma. It tragically and repeatedly mistakes the reenactment of the pain for the path to its cure. It marches you back onto the battlefield, convinced that it is a sanctuary. This, then, is the shadow side of passion. It is the force that explains obsessive love, the magnetic pull of destructive relationships, and the haunting feeling of being trapped in a cycle you cannot break. It is the hidden engine that drives our most intense, most fated, and often our most devastating love stories. It is a story not of two people meeting in the present, but of one person's past rising up to claim their future. It is a ghost story where we fall in love with the phantoms of our own history. To recognize this dynamic is to hold a map of your own chains. This attraction is a powerful, compelling, and often heartbreaking quest for wholeness. It is about being haunted by the unfinished business of your own life and seeking a form of exorcism in the arms of another person. But the ghost cannot be banished by a proxy. The healing cannot come from the outside. Understanding that you are drawn to a key is not a cause for despair, but for awakening. It is the first, most crucial step toward finally breaking the spell and choosing a different path. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the central crossroads where these two powerful forces meet. On one side you have the mirror, the bright aspirational passion for a future self, a love born from admiration and the promise of growth. On the other, you have the key, the dark, gravitational pull toward a familiar past, a love born from trauma and the promise of resolution. These are the two great hidden narratives of desire. They are the twin engines that power the machine of passion, operating deep beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. And the most unsettling realization is that in the throes of attraction, you are rarely, if ever, seeing the person in front of you. You are seeing a solution to your own story. Here is the critical revelation, the truth that may disturb the romantic narrative you hold dear. While the passion for the mirror can be inspiring, it is often the passion for the key that is the most potent, the most visceral, and the most life-altering. The calm admiration for an ideal is a powerful motivator, but the frantic, desperate, and instinctual pull toward a familiar pattern of pain is primal. That feeling of destiny, of a connection so deep it feels supernatural, is often the calling card of the wound. It feels more real and more fated precisely because it activates the oldest and most fundamental parts of our emotional programming. Let's use a final metaphor to make this distinction absolute. The mirror is a beautiful destination you consciously choose to travel toward. It is an act of will. The key, however, is a center of gravity you are helplessly caught by. It is a force of nature acting upon you. The first feels like a choice for a better life. The second feels like you have no choice at all, as if the universe itself has conspired to bring you together. And that very feeling of powerlessness, which we so often romanticize as a sign of true love, is in fact the clearest signal that a deep, powerful, and entirely unconscious agenda has taken control of your heart. This leads us to the most difficult and illuminating question you must ask yourself. When you reflect on your own romantic history, which role have you played more often for others? Have you been the shining mirror, reflecting back their own idealized potential? Or have you been the familiar key, unwittingly fitting the lock of their oldest wound? And more importantly, when you turn the gaze upon your own heart at the people who have left the deepest marks on your soul, what were you truly seeking? Were you looking at them and seeing a model for your future? Or were you seeing a ghost from your past? The true complexity of this dance is that these two forces are not always separate. They are often intricately, maddeningly intertwined. The person who falls for you as a mirror, seeking your strength, may be doing so because their original wound is a profound sense of inadequacy. The person who seeks you out as a key, reenacting a drama of abandonment, may be simultaneously projecting onto you the role of the one who will finally stay, which is a vision of their ideal self and their perfect future. The mirror and the key are not two different stories, but often two sides of the exact same coin, a tangled knot of aspiration and desperation. This forces us to confront a cold and difficult truth. In the fiery genesis of passion, We are almost never loved for who we truly are. We are loved for our function. We are chosen not for our soul, but for our utility. We are a mirror that polishes another's ego. We are a key that promises to unlock an old prison cell. The intoxicating feeling of being the one, of being uniquely special to someone, is often an illusion. What feels like being seen is, in reality, being used. You are not a person. You are a psychological tool, perfectly shaped to advance another's inner drama. And so you are left on this precipice, holding these two paradoxical truths in your hands. The attractions that have defined your life were likely not the serendipitous magic you believed them to be. They were a script, written by the needs, desires, and traumas of another person, just as your passions were a script written by your own. We are all living on a stage, acting in plays we don't remember writing, drawn to other actors who play their parts to perfection. The question is no longer, do they love me, but what role do I play, and what role do they play for me? The answer reveals everything, so we stand in the aftermath of this revelation with the machinery of desire laid bare. Every intoxicating pull, every fateful encounter, every love that felt like destiny can now be seen through this new lens. It is a constant, silent conversation between the two fundamental human quests: the quest to become whole by reaching for an ideal future, and the quest to become whole by healing a fractured past. The mirror and the key, aspiration and repetition. This is the hidden code of passion. Your romantic history is not a series of disconnected events. It is a map that leads directly to your greatest longings and your deepest, most formative wounds. The immediate temptation, armed with this knowledge, might be to learn how to manipulate these forces, to consciously become a mirror for someone you desire, or to recognize what key another person is seeking. But this is the final illusion, the ultimate trap of the ego. The true power delivered by this understanding does not lie in learning how to control the attractions of others. That is merely a more sophisticated form of performance, another cage. The real freedom, the only genuine mastery, comes from turning this powerful lens inward and daring to scrutinize the mechanics of your own heart. The goal is not to become irresistible, but to become self-aware. This is where we must draw the most important distinction of all, the vast difference between the act of falling in love and the practice of loving. Falling in love, as we have seen, is a largely unconscious process. It is a violent, beautiful storm of projection, need, and biochemical compulsion. It is the catalyst. But loving is the conscious act that follows. It is the choice to put down the mirror and see the real person. It is the decision to stop trying to use the key and instead to sit with the person and ask about their own locks. Passion is what happens to you. Love is what you choose to build. And so as you move forward from this moment, you carry this knowledge as both a burden and a gift. Look within. Think of the person who currently holds a space in your mind, or the one whose memory still echoes in the quiet rooms of your past. When you feel that undeniable pull, that magnetic force you call passion, what is it that you are truly reaching for? Are you searching for the brilliant, shining light of a future you desperately wish to become? Or are you chasing the familiar, haunting shadow of a past that you still believe you can rewrite? The answer to that single question defines more than your choice of partner. It defines your relationship with yourself. It reveals whether you are, at this moment in your life, living in a state of creation or in a state of repair. It tells you if you are being pushed forward by your potential or pulled back by your pain. There is no simple judgment here, only a profound awareness. To understand why you fall is to understand the forces that shape you, and to understand those forces is the first and most critical step toward deciding who you truly want to be.